I don't know when I started noticing her hands. Maybe it was that night, when she leaned over the counter to pour wine, and her bracelet slid down her wrist, catching the light like it was trying to get my attention. Her name's Elena, my stepmom's oldest friend. The kind of woman who doesn't have to say much to fill a room. She just stands there, calm, with that soft smile that never quite reaches her eyes. We weren't supposed to be alone that evening. My dad and stepmom had gone out for some reunion thing. Elena stayed behind to help set up for the next day's lunch, or that's what she said. I'd come down to grab a drink, wearing an old t-shirt, not expecting anyone still awake. She looked up from the sink when she heard me. Didn't think anyone else was up, she said. Her voice, low, quiet, like a secret that didn't want to be told. Couldn't sleep, I said, leaning on the doorway. You? Jet lag, she smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Or maybe just habit. I've never been good at sleeping in other people's houses. The kitchen light was dim, yellow and soft. Outside, rain tapped against the window. There was something strange about the quiet. Not uncomfortable, just charged. She reached for a towel, drying her hand slowly. The bracelet slid again. I watched it, then realized she was watching me notice. You've grown up, she said finally. Not like an observation, more like a thought that slipped out before she could stop it. I laughed, trying to sound casual. That's what happens when you disappear for 6 years. Her eyes softened. I didn't disappear. Life just rerouted. Yeah, I said. Happens to everyone. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It stretched, full of things neither of us would name. She turned to put the glasses away, and when she did, her shoulder brushed mine. A small, accidental touch. But it stayed. I felt my heartbeat in that brief space of contact. She didn't step back right away. Do you always look at people like that? She asked quietly. Like what? Her lips curved. Not a smile. Not yet. Like you're trying to see what they're not saying. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Maybe, I said. Depends who it is. She looked at me for a long moment. Then, softly, dangerous answer. The sound of the clock ticking filled the room. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. There was something in her eyes, a kind of tiredness, maybe regret, wrapped in warmth that shouldn't have been there. She stepped closer. Not much, just enough that I could smell her perfume. Faintly citrus, something familiar. She said, almost under her breath. You remind me of someone I used to know. Who? Her gaze flicked down, then up again. Someone I shouldn't have missed. The words hung there. My chest tightened. I didn't move, and neither did she. Then she smiled, too suddenly. We'll call that one a secret, she said. Before I could answer, she reached up, brushed something from my cheek that wasn't there, her fingers lingering just a little too long. The air between us broke like a held breath. And then, footsteps. The front door opened. Voices, laughter. My stepmom calling Elena's name. Elena's hand dropped. She stepped back, her face unreadable. But before she turned away, she whispered, quiet enough that only I could hear. One secret between us, okay? Then she smiled again, like nothing had happened, and walked out to greet them. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Coffee brewing, radio humming low, sunlight slanting through the blinds. She greeted me with that same calm smile, the kind that said last night was just small talk. But it wasn't. Not for me. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her move. The rhythm of her hands, the way she tucked her hair behind one ear. Everything she did seemed deliberate, careful, but there was tension in that care, like she was trying to stay inside invisible lines. She caught me watching and laughed softly. You look half asleep. Didn't sleep much, I said. Her brow lifted. Thinking too hard again. Something like that. The conversation felt light, but under it was that same pull, quiet and magnetic. When she handed me a mug, her fingers brushed mine. Barely, but it felt intentional. I saw the smallest hesitation before she pulled back, like she'd caught herself doing something she shouldn't. We spent the day setting up for the lunch my stepmom had planned. She'd gone out for errands, leaving just the two of us in the house again. At one point, Elena asked me to help hang a frame in the hallway. I stood on the small step stool, reaching for the hook, when she steadied it from below, her hands brushing my legs. Careful, she murmured. I froze, the air too still. Got it, I said, though my voice came out rougher than I meant. When I stepped down, she didn't move away fast enough. My shoulder grazed hers. The edge of her perfume caught me again. Her eyes flicked up to mine, then lingered. just for a heartbeat. Thanks, I said quietly. She nodded. You remind me of... She stopped herself, looking away. Never mind. That night, after everyone had eaten and gone, she stayed to help clean up. We moved around each other in that soft, tired silence that happens after company leaves, the kind that feels more intimate than it should. As I dried the last plate, I asked, You ever get tired of pretending? She looked at me sharply. Pretending what? That everything's fine. Her expression softened. She leaned against the counter, eyes lowering. More than I'll admit. For the first time, I saw the exhaustion behind her calm. Not physical, but something else. Years of holding herself together. I used to think I was good at being alone, she said. Turns out, I was just good at making it look easy. Something twisted in my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but she laughed lightly, covering the moment. Anyway, she said, wiping her hands. Enough about that. When she turned to leave, I reached out, without thinking, and touched her arm. She stopped. Her skin was warm under my fingers. She didn't pull away. Our eyes met. Too long, too close. Then she smiled, quiet and fragile. You shouldn't look at me like that. How am I looking? I asked. She didn't answer, just let out a slow breath that brushed my wrist. And for a moment, neither of us moved, suspended in that impossible, beautiful stillness that shouldn't exist. It started with rain again, the kind that fell in thin, silver lines, soft enough to sound gentle, steady enough to fill the silence between us. The house was half-lit, the kind of evening that made everything feel closer. Elena was sitting on the couch, hair pulled back loosely, reading glasses low on her nose. A small lamp pooled light around her, turning her into part of the room's glow. I came in from the kitchen, a towel draped over my shoulder, and stopped before saying anything. She looked up, smiling faintly. You always stand there like you're deciding something. Maybe I am, I said. Her eyes held mine for a second longer than they should have. She patted the space beside her, then decided sitting down. I did. The couch dipped, and our knees brushed. The sound of rain filled the gap between breaths. She closed the book, setting it aside. Your stepmom went to bed? Yeah, I said quietly. She's out cold. Elena nodded, then turned slightly toward me. You shouldn't be here, she said, but didn't move. I live here, I said. Her laugh was small, a breath more than a sound. You know what I mean. I didn't answer. My hand rested on my knee. Hers was close enough that if either of us shifted, we'd touch. She noticed. I could tell by the way her fingers tensed, just slightly. The room felt too warm. She looked away first. You're too young to look at people like that, she said softly. Like what? Like you've already made a decision. Her words should have pushed me back, but they didn't. They just hung in the air, trembling with everything unsaid. A message tone broke the quiet. Her phone, face down on the coffee table, lit up. I caught a glimpse, my stepmom's name. Elena's hand darted out, silencing it. The screen went black again, but her expression didn't recover as quickly. She thinks I'm asleep, she murmured, half to herself. Something in her voice cracked, just a little. I leaned in without meaning to. You don't have to explain. She looked at me then. For a second, I thought she'd tell me to stop. Instead, she said, barely audible, You make it hard not to. The thunder rolled far away, soft but deep. I could see the rain light caught in her hair, the line of her throat, the way she breathed like she was weighing every second before it vanished. Her hand moved, almost, not quite, toward mine. Then the hallway creaked. We both froze. A door opened upstairs, a voice calling faintly, my stepmom's. Elena pulled her hand back fast, standing before I could react. She pressed a palm to her forehead, then let out a quiet, shaky laugh. Close call, she whispered. I stood too. We didn't say anything else, just looked at each other, both caught between relief and something else we didn't dare name. When she finally turned to go, her sleeve brushed against mine, just enough for me to feel it, that fleeting warmth, gone too soon. But before leaving, she paused in the doorway and said, quietly, almost apologetic, Next time, we shouldn't let it get that close. She didn't wait for me to answer. For 2 days, we barely spoke. She kept busy, long walks in the morning, phone calls in the garden, anything that let her keep moving. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. Every time she passed by without meeting my eyes, the distance felt heavier. On the third night, I found her in the studio behind the house. The old art room. She'd lit one small lamp, its glow pooling over the half-finished canvas in front of her. She didn't hear me at first. Her hand moved slowly across the surface, tracing color she hadn't painted yet. "You used to teach?" I said quietly. She jumped slightly, then exhaled. "You shouldn't sneak up like that." I wasn't sneaking. Her brush paused midair. "You shouldn't be here either. Then tell me to leave." She didn't. The only sound was the slow tick of rain against the roof, steady and low. Finally she said, "It's not fair, you know. You look at me like I'm still worth looking at." I stepped closer. "You are." Her laugh cracked halfway through. "You don't mean that." I took another step, close enough now that I could smell the faint paint and citrus on her skin. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't." Her shoulders lifted and fell. "You don't understand what this looks like." "Then explain it to me." She turned, brush still in hand. Her eyes found mine, tired and bright all at once. "I'm too old for this kind of mistake." "It doesn't feel like a mistake," I said. The brush slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a soft sound. She didn't reach for it. I did. When I straightened, she was right there, inches away. Her breathing hitched. My hand still held the brush. Her hand found mine without meaning to, closing over it. Neither of us moved. "Say something," I whispered. She shook her head slowly. "If I do, we can't go back." I could feel her pulse against my wrist, quick and uneven. The lamp flickered, shadows shifting over her face. She looked up at me, eyes glassy with everything she was holding in. "I've tried to stop thinking about you," she said finally. "I can't." The words hit like a door unlocking. I reached up, brushing a stray strand of hair from her cheek. My fingers trembled. She leaned in, just slightly, like a reflex. The rain grew louder. "Someone will see," she whispered. "No one's here," I said. My voice was barely sound. We hovered there, breath against breath, both waiting for the other to move first. Her hand came up, resting against my chest. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. Then her phone buzzed again. Loud, shattering the moment. She closed her eyes, jaw tight. "It's her." The sound kept going. Neither of us reached for it. When it finally stopped, she opened her eyes, full of apology and want all tangled together, and said, almost breaking, "If we cross this line, I don't know how to uncross it." I answered before thinking, "Then maybe we don't." The next morning felt wrong before I even knew why. The house was too quiet. No music, no clinking dishes, just the hollow sound of rain on the roof again. Elena wasn't in the kitchen. Her bag was gone from the counter. I found her outside, standing near the car, one hand pressed against the door like she couldn't decide whether to open it. She looked different, her hair still damp, jacket thrown on in a rush. "You're leaving?" I asked. She turned, startled. "I was going to text." "You didn't." "I thought it'd be easier this way." "Easier for who?" She looked down, jaw tightening. "Your stepmom knows something." She asked about last night, why I was still up when she came down for water. The ground felt like it tilted. "What did you say?" "That I couldn't sleep. That you came down to talk about college." "It was nothing." Her voice was calm, but her hand trembled on the car door handle. "I didn't tell her anything," she added quickly. "But she's not stupid. She knows I'm." She stopped herself, exhaling sharply. "She knows I'm not the same when you're around." For a second, all I could hear was the rain. "I don't want to make trouble for you," she said. "Or for her. I care about both of you." The words "care about" landed heavy. I stepped closer. "So you're just leaving?" She shook her head. "I have to, before this turns into something it can't survive." The wind picked up, blowing strands of hair across her face. I reached out automatically, brushing them back. Her breath caught when my fingers grazed her temple. "You can't keep doing that," she whispered. "Doing what?" "Making it harder to do the right thing." I didn't move my hand. "Maybe the right thing isn't what we think it is." Her eyes met mine, wide, glassy, full of that same war she'd been fighting for days. "Don't make this into something beautiful," she said softly. "It's already breaking me." I wanted to tell her it wasn't wrong, that what we had wasn't some mistake, but the look on her face stopped me. She already believed it was. Then her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. I glanced down, saw the name flash for half a second before the screen dimmed. My stepmom. Elena saw that I'd seen. Her shoulders slumped. "She asked me to come by tonight," she said quietly. "She wants to talk." "About what?" She didn't say. The silence between us stretched tight. Neither of us stepped back. "Finally," she said, "whatever happens, You can't say anything. Promise me. I didn't answer right away. Then I nodded. She looked at me for a long time, eyes full of something like goodbye. But when she finally turned toward the car, she hesitated, her hand on the door, her reflection in the window trembling slightly. Without facing me, she said, almost a whisper, if she already knows, it doesn't matter what we promised, does it? And before I could speak, she got in and closed the door. The sound final, the space between us suddenly colder than rain. She came back that night. Late, after the rain stopped, after the lights upstairs had gone out. I heard the car before I saw her. Headlights flashed once across the window, then darkness again. A knock followed, quiet, deliberate. When I opened the door, she stood there, soaked from the mist, hair loose around her face. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. Can I come in? I stepped aside without speaking. She brushed past me, the faint scent of rain and perfume trailing behind. We stood in the living room, the kind of silence that hums, too full, too close. She knows, Elena said finally. Her voice was calm, but the edges of it shook. Your stepmom. She didn't say it outright, but she knows. What did you tell her? The truth, she said quietly. That nothing happened. Nothing did. Elena looked at me. Really looked. Are you sure? That question landed somewhere deep, where words didn't reach. I took a slow breath. It feels like something did. She nodded once, stepping closer. That's the problem. The air between us changed. The clock ticked softly in the corner, each second heavier than the last. Her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, until her fingertips touched my jaw, just enough to make my heart trip. You don't understand how hard this is, she whispered. Wanting something you can't have. I swallowed. Then stop pretending you don't. Her breath caught. You think it's that simple? It could be. The space between us shrank until I could feel her warmth, the brush of her sleeve against my arm. Every breath, every heartbeat, loud enough to hear. She said, if we do this, there's no taking it back. I know. And when it falls apart, then it falls apart. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, not enough to close the distance, just enough to feel what it would be like if she did. Her hand slid to the back of my neck, light as a secret. My pulse kicked under her touch. The world felt small, just the two of us, the dark, and the soft sound of rain starting up again. We hovered there, one breath away. Her voice came out like a confession. I should walk away. I nodded. Then why aren't you? Her answer was a whisper against my skin. Because you make me remember what it's like to be alive. And then, she stopped. Her eyes met mine, wide, steady, full of something raw and final. I can't, she said, stepping back. If I don't stop now, I won't. The space she left was unbearable. She turned toward the door, hands shaking as she reached for the handle. You'll understand someday, she said, almost breaking. Why I had to choose this. She looked back once, a glance that said everything words couldn't. Then she left. Weeks passed before I saw her again. Life moved like it always does, loud, practical, pretending. My stepmom talked about plans for spring, my dad mentioned fixing the roof, and every conversation skirted around the one thing no one said aloud. But some nights, when the house was still, I'd catch myself replaying that moment, her hand on my face, her breath trembling against mine. The almost, the leaving. Then one afternoon, she showed up at the gallery downtown, the one she used to restore pieces for. I hadn't planned to be there. I'd taken a delivery job nearby, stopped in to drop something off. She saw me before I could decide whether to walk away. For a second, we just stared, both surprised, both pretending not to be. Then she smiled, small and uncertain. You look different. Do I? Older, she said. Like time caught up with you. I laughed under my breath. It's been a few months. Feels longer. The silence that followed wasn't sharp this time. It was soft, familiar, the kind you settle into, not escape from. We sat on a bench near the window, the light falling through the glass in gold and dust. Outside, the sea shimmered faintly beyond the street. I never said goodbye properly, she said. You didn't have to. I did, she said, turning toward me. Because I left things messy. I thought distance would make it easier. It didn't. Her words hit slow, steady. I nodded. You don't owe me anything. That's not true, she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. I owe you honesty. I waited. She looked down at her hands. I wanted you. I still do. But it scared me, how much I needed to be seen again. You did that. You reminded me I wasn't invisible. I swallowed hard. And what about now? She smiled, not sad this time, just real. Now I'm not hiding from it. She reached out then, hesitating only once before letting her fingers find mine. The touch was simple, unhurried, but it said everything that words couldn't fix. We sat like that for a long while, her thumb brushing lightly over my hand, the quiet stretching comfortably between us. No drama, no grand confession, just two people who had finally stopped running from what they already knew. When she stood to leave, she leaned in and kissed my forehead, a soft, lingering touch that felt more like truth than temptation. Take care of yourself, she said, her breath warm against my skin. You too, I whispered. She smiled, squeezing my hand once before letting go. And even after she walked away, the space beside me still held her warmth, a quiet promise that whatever we were, it mattered. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?